You're watching Console Conversations.
As you guys know, one of my favorite games of all time is The Last of Us Remastered. And today, as of the time of recording this, we got a state of play all about the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time. Now, you might be wondering why I'm doing a console conversations like this. Well, I thought that this console conversations I should do on my own because I needed to talk directly to you about this. We got an extended look at my most anticipated game of 2020 that started us off with the story trailer from a couple weeks ago that we took a look at in our second episode of this season. That was extremely impressive. It was a great trailer, and it already gave us tons of details. But now we have even more, and Neil Druckmann himself said everything in this state of play was merely the tip of the iceberg. They have so much to show and so much to tell us about. They're not going to skimp out on anything, it seems. They're going to push forward in every sense of the word. The animations look even better than they did when they first showed it. The gameplay looks intense and impressive. And if you haven't played the first game, I recommend being extremely careful watching this video. And I'm going to talk about some things. So, if you don't care about spoilers, that's great. But you need to be careful if you do. But, with that being said, The Last of Us Part 2 looks incredible. They started us off with that trailer and then went in to some major details with Neil Druckmann narrating, talking about how he wants us to enjoy the game and how he appreciates our patience. And yes, I agree because I am very sad when I remember that it's still like 20 days until this game launches. But regardless, we've been getting a lot of details. And it just looks incredible. There's nothing that I saw in this entire trailer that I thought looked stupid or bad, other than one thing, which is that you're able to injure dogs. I don't like that. Naughty Dog, please change that. I don't like that. Well, maybe that adds an extra challenge to the game, where I will avoid hurting any dogs, but I just don't want that. But regardless, we got some details, and we saw basically a remake of the first game's ending, but in this new engine with this new animation quality. And if you compare the first game's actual ending to this remade one, it's stunning. He then narrates us on basically how it begins, and he talks about how she lives on her own, which I didn't know about that. I thought Joel was going to be with her. But we know that she lives on her own in Jackson, Wyoming, and she has had a tragic event happen in that community, basically is what he said, but they did not elaborate on what that was, so I'm assuming it's going to be a very interesting thing that will happen. And then they talk about how she's going to venture forth on her own, and they finally explain to us who the villains are. Now, they don't explain to us, like, the Firefly stuff nearly as much, but they talk to us about a lot of stuff about the climate and the enemies. So they talk to us about how you're gonna explore extremely vast worlds that are going to be on a scale that we've never seen before in a Naughty Dog game, as they put it, which, that'd be amazing if we had an open world Last of Us. That would be pretty awesome. And then he talks about how you are going to have much more extensive horseback sections, and you're going to be able to explore these places much more. He talks about all the different places you can hide out. They kind of give us some glimpses into those giant open areas. And they talk about some new moves and materials you'll have. You'll be able to jump much more extensively. You'll be able to use ropes and you'll be able to use them strategically in combat to get the upper hand on enemies, or to swing below them and kill them from there. So it's going to be very interesting because everything changes everything. One new thing that they add, if done right, could change massive parts of the combat, and this is just one thing. They showed us so many new things. It looks like they're really focusing on just completely annihilating the first game. And with the new boat sections and all these different climates you can explore, I think that they might be successful. And that's not to say the first game won't still hold up, but if they're able to improve in every way upon the first game, I will lose my mind. Then they talk more about the enemies. They talk about the WPL, or the WLF, which is the Washington Liberation Front, I believe. And the Washington Liberation Front is a group of military resistance who stole weapons from the military and are using them to patrol the streets of Seattle, and they're basically a faction trying to completely overtake the city, and they're more human. They're more natural. And then you have another group, and they are a deeply religious group who cut themselves in order to become part of the group, and they are attempting to kill everybody who does not follow along with their beliefs, and they said they're more so using melee weapons and silent weapons like bows. So you're gonna have to definitely watch out for them. And then we get even more details on the enemies of the game, and some really grotesque shots of infected. We're seeing more zombies than ever. They say that the runners are going to be more fierce, the clickers are going to be better programmed but more deadly, the stalkers are going to be much more frequent and silent, and they said they're going to have some brand new types of enemies. They have this one that's heavily armored and absolutely massive, and then they gave us a little hint at there would be one more type of enemy so horrifying that they didn't want to spoil it just yet. And let me tell you, The Last of Us 1, there were some scenes that I was like, ew, that's kind of gross or a bit too grotesque. But it never was really that scary, except this one time where I saw that the runners were coming for me. But this, I really hope they don't make this a horror game too much. I hope it's an action game with horror elements, and it's fine for them to have a more scary enemy, but please don't make it too scary, guys. Then we get info on the dogs and how they're going to be able to sniff you, and I swear, Naughty Dog, please, you have about a month. Please before you ship the game out, if you need to delay it again, I'd be fine with it just for this. Please just remove the ability to hurt dogs. That's all I ask. That's the only thing about this that looked bad. Then we get some more details on the combat. You're able to break glass, crawl through tight spaces, you're running much faster, you're much more agile, and they're adding much more to the combat. So it's not, there's proning, which we already knew about, but they showed us it more extensively. So they talk a lot about all the different things you're able to do. You're able to dodge in very specific ways depending on what type of weapon the enemy is using. And it looks super awesome. Like, you're just, as long as you're able to learn how the enemies behave, you're able to dodge their melee attacks, which was what I wanted out of the first game because I like using the melee attacks to save my ammo. And this looks like it's going to make using that much better and more rewarding and more strategic, kind of like how Ori did with its combat with the second game. They talk about how allies will be helping you throughout the game, accompanying you, and how they'll be able to help in very, very important ways, unlike how, like, in the first game you had Sam and Harris who might help you once in a while, but the AI wasn't up to snuff with modern games, but these look like they're going to be helping you much more extensively. They look like kind of bringing in some of the RPG elements, where you have partners who can legitimately help you, which I think is a good idea. I just hope there are some segments that are more challenging without those partners, and they didn't say that there would be partners all the time, so I'm gonna assume that that's the case. And then they talk about how you are able to turn enemies against each other. Now, I remember being able to do this like once or twice in The Last of Us Left Behind. Only a few times, and only if I was very lucky I would be able to get the zombies to attack the humans. But this time they're going to be using that on an extreme level. And then they give us even more details on the upgraded crafting and workbench centers. You're able to learn brand new branches and everything. It's not like the first game where you could, upgrade one or two things and they would have a small impact. No, you're able to completely revamp everything, have branching paths, and when you upgrade your weapons, there'll be noticeable improvements. You can add scopes, you can add explosive ammo, and they'll be noticeable, and they said they'll be visualized, and this is a great feature. All I asked of this game was that it would be impressive, not have a bad story, and improve on some things, but they've taken it to a new level. Crafting is so much more complicated, and on such a high, incredible level, like we've never seen before. You're able to use all kinds of silencers and different types of weapons, and this looks pretty incredible too, because now you're able to use ammo to attack enemies without alerting the other ones, which I think will be very helpful. The bow also completely revamped. They're taking more of a Horizon Zero Dawn approach, where it's more like a gun and it shoots extremely fast, and it's more of an accurate reticle compared to the first game, which took more of the Breath of the Wild approach, where it's very physics based. And I prefer the Horizon Zero Dawn method, honestly, because it's just much more easy and more encouraged to use it. So we then get a look at some enemies and some more recaps of the things we saw in that story trailer. So at this point I was like, okay, they don't need to give us much more. And then they're like, here you go, a gameplay demo. Because we totally didn't give you enough details before. Oh my god, this gameplay demo looks absolutely insane. It's the game. This is the game. We've seen shots before, and I've been like, okay, there's no way this can actually be real, but it is. They captured this off of a PS4. This is the real gameplay. And people were saying, oh, if the gameplay demo they showed is just a slightly scripted and the gameplay is just slightly worse, that'd be super impressive still. Well, it actually looks better. It looks better than the gameplay demos that we've gotten. It blows my mind that this looks so incredible. We've seen games that look so nice, but never in this much detail on this scale. You know, with some games, they look extremely nice. And then with other games, they're extremely big and they don't look as nice. This game is going to be an extremely big game that looks better than any game I've ever seen in my entire life. And the graphics are just insane. The detail is meticulous and ridiculous. We then get a glimpse into Sony advertising the Vita in this scene, which is kind of funny. It's a very sad and kind of gross scene, but, you know, Sony advertising the Vita. That's a bit weird. Then we get to see a bit more gameplay, and we see Ellie walking around, and we see how incredible this is going to be. It's when you pick up items, it's not just going to be like, oh, I'm just mashing the triangle button and the animations are kind of meh. No, she picks up the items in her hands and in detail puts it in her pocket. They went above and beyond with this. We then see that you're able to learn details from certain enemies, and then one of my favorite parts of this entire State of Play event happens. This part of the gameplay is absolutely insane. So first they show, you crafting a silencer, and I was like, okay, another piece of gameplay. No, because look at that. You can shoot from such a far range with just your pistol. They've increased the range, which is something I had kind of a problem with in the first game. Then we see the upgraded stealth kills, which is something I've been wanting to see for quite some time. They seem to be much more realistic and much more accessible. So that's good, because before I would slightly make a noise and an enemy would detect me. This game seems to be much more forgiving, but still on a level realistic, and the aiming looks blissful in this game. Like, the aiming in the first game was really good, but this game just, oh my god, the aiming looks so accurate. They're probably going to add a new aim assist mode, and this is the worst part. I know, it's kind of weird, because the worst part of the State of Play is in my favorite part of the State of Play. So I recommend anyone watching this on YouTube, close your eyes now, because this is really depressing. Yeah, that's what happens if, for those of you who kept their eyes open. Now you can open your eyes back open. Basically, we're shown extended gameplay with all these details. All the different kinds of attacks that you would normally have are in this part of the demo. So it's good to finally see them answering some of the questions I had about certain ways of attacking. And the bow, we're shown again, looks much more improved. They seem to be much more encouraging of the bow. Whereas in the first game, they did encourage it in some situations, but then it was extremely hard to use, so not many people used it, and when I did want to use it, I really couldn't. So this seems to be taking a much better approach to balancing the weapons. The pistol is powerful as long as you're able to use it properly, and in the first game it was kind of hit or miss whether or not it would have the right amount of power or not. But this game, they seem to be doing it really, really well done, and now we're shown the fact that enemies can pick up on other enemies' deaths. They notice it. That's pretty incredible. I believe that happened maybe once or twice, but it never happened on the level or the scale or the level of detail that it should have. And now it seems to be happening. The enemies aren't these blank slates, kind of like they were in the first game. Not as a game, but compared to this new one, it just looks incredible. So, after this is basically the end of the demo, and we're shown a bit more aiming. Still, aiming looks pretty incredible. But that was The Last of Us 2 State of Play, and it was incredible in every way. I did not mean for that to rhyme. But thank you guys for watching this video. Now, be safe. Comment down below other ideas you have for console conversations. Goodbye, and I swear, you better pre-order The Last of Us 2 right now. I mean, come on, man, what's wrong with you?